And welcome to another episode of 50 Shades and Grey. Now, today we're going to look at in midlife, what is it that men and women want? And is it so different to what they wanted when they were in their 20s? And why has that changed if it is different? Now, I saw a stat the other day that was round about it was women over the age of 40, 52% of them choose to be single by choice. I did wonder at this stage, where are all the other men? Because men must be the same, because roughly it's an even split, maybe one slightly more than the other. But men don't suddenly just disappear. And so if there are that many women that are single in midlife over the age of 40, then where are the men? Unless they're all choosing to be gay at 40 and coming out of the closet and then having lives with men, where are all the heterosexual men at this stage that the women are coming out of relationships from? I did then wonder, do men die earlier? Which apparently they do. Bummer for men. But it's not that. It's only sort of 3 or 4 years on average. So it's not like there's loads of hordes of men that are all dying early to leave these widowed women that are then deciding, do you know what? I've had enough relationships, so I'm going to be single. Now, I completely get why lots of people choose to be single in midlife, and that's for a variety of reasons. I think it's because some people get to the stage where they kind of think, I'm kind of done with dating. There are certain needs in my life that I may want that I can fulfill, but I don't need to be living with anyone again. I'm quite happy living on my own, having relationships maybe where I want. And I think in previous podcasts, we've referred to it as taking a lover. And I completely understand that. I know myself, when I was single, for a long time, I kind of thought, do you know what? If I stay single, this is okay. I'm quite comfortable with it now. I'm quite happy on my own. I need my own independence within a relationship anyway, and it's kind of working for me. So I don't want to upset that balance. The other side of it is sometimes you don't actually want to take the risk because you think, my life's quite good at the moment. If I bring someone else into it, it can disrupt it. And do I need that aggravation of more drama? So when I started to look deeper into this, obviously the stats was not misleading, but they're about the same for guys as well. And then that can be for a number of reasons. And what I did find out was why people and how you perceive single was different. So there were a lot of people that had been widowed by the time they'd got to midlife. So they were not choosing to have any more partners or not ready to have partners at that time. Then there were people that had never been married and decided not to get married, not to have kids, and they were happy that way. So there were a variety of reasons behind it. So then I started to think, right, so is what we want when we're older very different from what we want in our 20s? Now, I think for men, maybe not so much. I think when, the things that you look for in your 20s, you might refine in later life. You probably, if you come out of divorce or you come out of a marriage, whether that's your choice or your partner's choice, they might lean towards, do you know what? I just want an easy life. I want a lot less drama in my life. And so I think a lot of men might, choose to take on a life that's easier, maybe than someone that would challenge them more when they were in their 20s because they've no longer got the energy for that. But for women, I think it probably is very different. I think things that you may choose in a partner that you're going to have children with in your is may look very different in your 40s if you've already had the children by this time and spent time with a partner. And I do wonder for all the people that are in marriages that have been in long marriages and very happy marriages, I wondered if you asked them the question and said, okay, let's assume that you were to get married again, would you do it? And I think from my conversations that I've had with people, a lot of them are like, do you know what? No, probably not. Probably not. I probably wouldn't get married again. So I think for men, it's very similar. It's very similar what they want. Maybe changed a little bit. I think for women, probably big changes. I think things that they thought that they wanted as a home environment to bring up kids in with a partner is probably very different to what they want once they've had kids, maybe. The women out there will have to tell me, would they choose something different now to what they chose in their 20s? Were they prioritizing things that they thought were really important when they were in their 20s to things that now, obviously with age and with knowledge and with experience especially, you kind of think that's no longer important to me. And it doesn't mean that it's not important. It just might have been more higher on your list in your 20s than it was in your 40s. Or is that because when you get to your 40s, you just know yourself better, don't you? I think for me, I look at, I know a lot more of what I don't want now, which I didn't know in my 20s. I didn't know what I didn't want in my 20s. I probably thought I knew what I wanted a lot more. I don't think I really knew what I didn't want. And now I'm much older in midlife. I just know what I don't want. I can spot it very quickly. Don't get me wrong, I still make big mistakes and I still enter into things where I think that might have been really good and then find out 3 months later that actually it's not what I want at all. But I think I know I don't want drama, and I think I can spot them earlier before I make mistakes, so I don't just go along with things. I think when I look back into my relationships in my late 20s, especially, I was with great people that probably knew what they wanted, and I still didn't. I still really didn't. I wasn't looking long term with anyone. I was just looking to the next day or the next week. And when all of a sudden they were looking long term, I was kind of thinking, This probably not what I want." And also, I think I was looking long term without even realizing what long term even looked like in my 20s, what that thought was, what the whole process of what I really wanted. So I don't think I really knew what I wanted in my late 20s, early 30s, where I think now I've got a much clearer picture of that. And I wonder if that's the same for women now, if they sort of get to their midlife and just realize what they want a lot more. And I think the big difference is obviously women are able to bear children. So I wonder how much that has a significant change on their priorities of what they want once they've had children. Does that change? Do they start focusing on less of what they want to have a family? And then once they've had the family and they've done that job, and the same for guys, do they then start getting to their 40s and thinking, okay, my kids are older now. My kids are grown up. My kids are starting to have their own lives and make their own mistakes. I can start focusing on me now. I can start focusing on me again because I'm not having any more kids. So it's about what I want. It's about what I want for me. And when they look at what they want for them, do people then go, what I want now has changed? What I do want has changed. So then what I decided to do was look up and I found this table and it had about what men want and what women want in relationships in their 40s and what the overlaps are. And I'll include that for you here now. Now, when you look at this table, there are lots of things that you read and think, okay, well, I can get that. So, for instance, it's they don't want confrontation and they don't want drama, and women want more emotional connection, and men still put quite high on their list they want to be attracted to someone, where women might lean towards emotional intimacy a little bit more than men do, but men still find that important. When I look at this table, I just think, what real difference is there? There's not a great amount of difference that's changed that much to what we want. It's just, I think our perspectives change on it. When you look at what's on there, does anyone in their sort of when in their late 20s think, "Do you know what I want? I want drama in a person. I want drama every day." I think in our 20s, we just have the ability to probably tolerate drama a lot better because we've just got more energy. I think as we get older, you just think, "Oh, sod this. I just can't be asked. I can't be asked arguing anymore about whose job it is to do this and whose job it is to do that." We're grown adults now. We should just be doing it. And I think you just think, how important is this? How important is this to me? And how important is it to the other person? So I think when you look at this table, there's not anything on there that really jumps out and, think, wow, that's mind blowing. I never knew that before because I don't think there really is. I think the things that were always there in our 20s, the differences, I think women have always been a lot more emotionally in tune and intelligent than men have. And men are very visual creatures that are attracted to boobs and bums a lot of the time. They're straightforward guys, aren't they? And women want something a little bit deeper sometimes in guys, but they still want their guy to be attracted. And I think men probably grow up slightly when they get older. I think we do, guys, don't we? And we want a little bit more than this, but I don't. I think that still stays quite high on the list of guys. When you talk to guys, guy on guy, they still want that. They still find that attractive. They just probably want a little bit more to go with it in there, is because they've learned that, you know, looks aren't everything, and you need a little bit more to go with it to sustain that attracted attractiveness to the other person. So I think our priorities change, and life changes in 40s, doesn't it? Relationships change because we have kids or we don't have kids, or we want someone with kids or we don't want someone with kids, or we don't want someone with young kids anymore, or we don't want to deal with someone's older kids that are going to challenge us. So there are so many things that make our choices in midlife different for a relationship, and it's tolerating things. I find as I've got older I get a lot less tolerant of things than I used to be. I used to be able to brush things off quite quickly, but now I just think I don't need to. I don't need to stand for this, and I'm quite capable of actually speaking up for myself more than I used to be now, and probably a lot quicker to actually say, well, that's not right. I'm not having that, and I've found that within my own relationship that person sort of is very good at doing that with me, that they will say, look, I've seen this before and I don't like it. And if you're going to do that, then this is not going to go very far. And I think I've got a tiny bit better in kind of going, well, okay, well, I'll keep an eye on that, and I'm sorry about that. I probably a lot better at apologizing now as we get older. We stand our ground, because I think the biggest thing of getting older is that you know yourself a lot better, and that's with experience. And I think the person that you are in your 40s is massively different from the person you are in your 20s, and it should be, right? It should definitely be a lot different to the person you are in your 20s, because you've lived double the length of time. You've made twice as many mistakes as you did in your 20, and in some cases, like mine, probably a quadruple that as well. And you've lived a lot more life. You've doubled your life almost in terms of experiences. You've gone through kids. You've had the experience of bringing someone else up and trying to teach them how you want them to live their life, and the mistakes that you made in your life, you try not to pass on to your kids. And it, you know, there's a lot more that goes on in your 40s. You financially, you're hopefully more secure than you was in your 20s, and you're used to dealing with pressures of work and with people at work and with families and friends, and everything has changed so much that when you're in your 40s you are a different person, because you're in a different place, and you know what you want far more out of not a partner, but just out of life. And I think I've noticed this a lot from looking at social media of people now that are older and just starting to question, what's it all about? What are we doing here? And what's my purpose? So, my purpose in my is was my kids. That was my purpose. And to a large extent, that still remains a purpose for you, is still watching over your kids. Because we all know, no matter how old they are, you never stop worrying about your kids and you're always looking out for them. But at the same time, you start to question, okay, like, what we've now got the house, we've now got the cars, and I've got a job that provides an income, whatever that income may be. But where is it going? What am I doing with this? What's the purpose of all this? Am I just waiting until I get to sort of 60, 70, where I'm at an age where I can stop working and then do what? You know, maybe travel, maybe not travel. And at 70, it's a lot harder probably traveling than it is when you're in your 40s and your 50s. And then you think, but why would I travel? I now want to see my kids grow up, and that must be a great time. And I'm not there yet, but I'm sure one day I'll want to spend time with my son's kids. We ask ourselves a lot more questions in our 40s, and I think with that, we probably ask, who do I want along for this ride? Who do I want sitting next to me for this second part of my journey? So it's about sort of not so much a fresh start. It's just a different start. It's a different start with knowing yourself a lot better, knowing that we're going to make mistakes, but knowing how to cope with them. And I think that's the biggest thing about experience. You always you're always going to make mistakes. It's a given. The difference is with experience is you know how to get out of them and you know how to rectify it and you know what to do because you think, I've been here before. I've made this mistake before and I know what to do to make it better before it gets worse. So I think that's the benefit of experience. And I think it is a lot to do with experience of who we choose for that next part of our journey. And it may be a long ride and it may be a short ride, but always, as always, just enjoy the ride. Would you do it differently? And would you do it again? And just to see what their answers were and how they changed so much and how many of them say, do you know what? I'd do it exactly the same. Or if I was to do it again, maybe I'd choose to do this slightly different, maybe not have kids as early as we did, or maybe have kids later than we did, or make more time for each other as well. I want someone that makes me laugh more. I want someone that can listen to me more. I want someone that can take notice of me. I want to be more independent in my next relationship. And I want to be more fun in my next relationship than I did. And maybe that's because a lot of the things in our 20s we actually let go of in order to have a family in our and young 50s, and that we want to recapture those again. Or maybe that your priorities have just changed now. Maybe in your 40s, 50s, you've got older parents that you want to take care of, and that doesn't allow you time. And there's all these dynamics that go on that make it really different in midlife. And then when you examine all of these and you lay them out on the table, you know, that's why it is so difficult meeting someone in midlife and meeting the right person in midlife, because you probably have a lot higher standards now because you realize the importance of your next choices are what you're going to go forward with in time that's, you know, coming away very quickly. So you're starting to look forward a lot more with a lot more experience. And if you're lucky enough to find someone that you want to take that the rest of that journey with, then that's a great thing. And if it's not everything that I want in my life now, why would I want that? Because where I am, I'm in a good place. I don't want to complicate it. I don't want to make it worse. I don't want to settle. So all these things contribute to, choosing partners in midlife. And That's why it's so different in midlife. That's why so much changes in midlife with our partner choice and meeting people. And whether that is on apps or out or through friends or whatever it may be, our red flags, our green flags, our priorities and our sense of what we want is probably more in tune to ourselves. So let me know what your thoughts on this, and especially those people that have been and still are in long relationships. What would you do differently? How would you change things together, in your relationship now? And how would you change things maybe separately if you were to come out of that relationship now? Guys, thank you again for listening to 50 Shades of Grey. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.